Is that her in the VIP line with the V-Time and the East Laurent? Used to drive the Nissan, now she in the Beamer. I don't want her, cause she from the corner.
Sometime in the year 3219, on the planet of Mars, there was a fish born, and this fish's name was Steve Frenchicus. Steve loved to play around on Mars, just hanging around, doing normal fish stuff. And then when he turned 19, he got his first job on the International Space Dock of Mars. Steve loved his new job at the International Space Dock of Mars until one day, when he was loading the ship to Earth, he forgot to get off in time, and he began his 3,000 billion mile journey to Earth, where he would start his new life in the town of Rockport, Massachusetts.
One day, while walking down the streets of Rockport, Massachusetts, Steve French ran into this guy named Old Man Jenkins.
Oh, hello, Steve. My name is Old Man Jenkins, and I have something to tell you. If you go to Luke Andrews' house, he will give you 12 tasks to do. If you do 12 tasks, then Luke will make you president of the world. So Steve went to Luke Andrews' house and then knocked on Luke Andrews' door to see if he was home. Then Luke Andrew came running around the corner to see who was at his door. Oh, hi, Steve French. Why don't you come on in? Then Luke Andrews sat down and had a chat with Steve French, telling him what 12 labors he would have to do to become president of the world. Luke thought that Steve would be able to do this no problem, and so did Steve, but they had no idea of the troubles that were coming their way. For the first task, Steve French had to swim under the sea to go visit the lionfish. The lionfish had old man Jenkins 3 pebbles, and Luke wanted to collect that for old man Jenkins. So Steve had to get into the lionfish's house, but it was protected by an ADT security system, so he had to squeeze through the chimney to get inside. Whoa, Steve French, how'd you get in my house? Well, you see, lionfish, I came in through the chimney because you owe old man Jenkins 3 pebbles. No, I don't, Steve. Get out of here before I hurt you. Oh, you're gonna hurt me? We'll see about that, lionfish. Steve then took the lionfish outside and forced him above water until the lionfish agreed to give him the 3 pebble debt that he owed the old man Jenkins. And thus, the first task was completed. Steve then ventured over to the hardware store to collect his second task. At the hardware store, Steve found the employee Bob. Bob had 4 heads, and inside those heads were trinkets, and Luke wanted some trinkets. So Steve tried to cut off one of Bob's sleeping heads, but he couldn't because they were impervious to steel. So now Steve had to think of something else to cut off Bob's head with. Steve remembered learning somewhere that people with multiple heads are allergic to deodorant. So then Steve rubbed one of Bob's heads with some deodorant, and it suddenly shrunk away until Bob had 3 heads, and Luke was able to take the trinkets from the first head. For the next task, Steve French had to swim to the bottom of the ocean and collect some coral for Luke so he could make his lava lamp. But when he got down there, he realized the coral was too big, so he had to go get a hammer so he could break it up. Steve returned with the hammer and began to break up the coral into many pieces and then bring it to the surface. But when he got to the surface, Luke was disappointed that the coral was in many pieces, but eventually forgave Steve.
The next task was for Steve to go fill the propane tank. He needed to do this because Luke was having a barbecue that night. But the propane tank was really heavy, and he couldn't lift it, so he had to roll it. But it rolled too fast, and it was getting away from him. But as it was rolling away, a police officer stopped it. Steve was thankful, and now he was able to cautiously roll the propane tank along by himself. The next task was that Steve had to clean the grill after the barbecue Luke had had the night before. This was to prove that Steve would be willing to do anything to be the next president of the world. But it was hard work, but Steve eventually had finished cleaning the grill after he had used water from his tank to pour on the grill to make the dirt come up easier. Luke was impressed with Steve's capability of thinking up something so smart.
At the beach, Steve French saw a girl crying because a seagull took her hot dog. Wham! Wham! Seagull took my hot dog. To scare the seagull, Steve then threw a bottle cap at the seagull to scare it. But the seagull was unfazed. Steve then asked the seagull why he did it. The seagull then said, "Because I felt like it." Then Steve decided that he needed to rid society of the seagull because he was mean. So he took the seagull and he threw him into the ocean. And the seagull was never seen again. And thus Steve French has completed his next task. For the next task, Steve had to go watch bull riding with Michael Jordan VII. But while they were in the crowd, the bull got loose and began to attack, and Michael Jordan fled the scene. The bull was just running around, causing chaos, until Steve jumped on its back and rode the bull away, all the way back to Luke's house. For the next task, Steve French had to take the horses from his neighbor's house because they were really loud and woke Luke up in the morning. But first he had to take out the guards watching the horse. After he take out the guards, it was just an easy walk over to the horses themselves. Once Steve got to the horses, he took them and he threw them in the ocean. Thus ended the next task. The next task was to sneak into the candy store and steal the candy necklace below the Celtics poster because it was really yummy and Luke wanted it. So Steve snuck in past the shopkeeper and took the candy necklace away from the shop. But before he could get away, the candy necklace protector saw him. "Hey you! Get back here with that candy necklace!" She chased Steve for about a half mile, and then he turned the corner and went into the public bathroom, where she jumped on the sink. And the shopkeeper could not follow him. "Gosh darn it, I guess I'll just go back to my shop. That Steve always seems to get away." The next task, Steve had to find a way to get out to the deep sea, because Luke had a bet with the lionfish that Steve could beat up the cowfish. To get out to the middle of the sea, Steve had to ride in a plastic cup. And when he finally got there, the cowfish was easily defeated, and Steve took him down with no problem at all. Thus ended the next task. Steve's next task was to steal the silver turkey niblets from the Gloucester witch's house, but the witch was busy stirring pasta when he arrived. "Hey, Gloucester witch, can I have your turkey niblets?" "Hey, Gloucester witch, can I have your turkey niblets?" Yes, Steve French, I'll go get the turkey niblets for you, as long as you stir my pasta while I'm gone." So Steve stirred the pasta while the Gloucester witch was gone getting the turkey niblets. I have the turkey niblets, Steve French, but you can't have them until the pasta is done. Ha 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 ha.
Steve French had to think of something so that the Gloucester Witch would let him go.
Hey, Gloucester Witch, look out behind you. There's a skunk. Where's the skunk? I don't see one.
While the Gloucester Witch was turned around, Steve French grabbed the silver turkey niblets and was on his way.
The next task was to rescue Winnie Dog from the very scary forest way in the back of Luke's house. Steve was scared, but he knew that he had to venture into the dark forest to save her. When Luke got to the edge of the dark forest, he saw Winnie cowering in front. Steve got to the edge of the dark forest, he saw Winnie cowering in front. Steve quickly jumped into action and grabbed the leash. And now Steve carefully led Winnie back to the house, where Luke was very happy to see her.
While the Gloucester Witch was turned around, Steve French grabbed the silver turkey niblets and was on his way, thus completing the next task.
I ain't happy, I'm feeling glad I got sunshine in a bag. I'm useless, but not for long, the future is coming on.